Welcome back to another episode. We're going to New York today and speaking with Ray Maestro. Ray is an abuse and suicide awareness prevention advocate, a motivational speaker and TV host, radio host. He's also a bilingual MC presenter, survivor and healer, a recovery specialist, and author of Fighting Through the Darkness. Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real great pleasure, honor, privilege to be here with you. I appreciate the invitation.
I'm excited, Ray, for this conversation. Not so much excited about the topic, folks. We're going to be talking about leadership and suicide prevention. And coming into September, where we highlight this week, this specific week is Suicide Prevention Week, but the month is usually held to observe and add to the prevention and the help that folks need in this particular subject matter. But before we get into all of that, Ray, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm a blend of things, you know. On the weekends, I usually host events, primarily Latin events. So I'm a bilingual MC. I speak Spanish. So the majority of my events are around the tri-state area, New York City metropolitan area, and it ranges from, concerts to beauty pageants, fashion shows, press conferences, expos, seminars. That's all on the entertainment side, you know. And then during the week, there's a lot of motivation and inspiration and coaching for people that come from rough backgrounds. Maybe they're survivors of abuse, of suicide, addictions, mental health issues, or a combination of those. Or maybe it's people that have a lot of stress from their job, from their family, they're overworked, they're tired, and they need extra motivation and extra positivity. So I help them with that. And I'm very active on the Zooms, and I'm very active on live events. So usually weekends is live events, and usually during the week is Zooms. But everything is great. I enjoy meeting people, and everybody's always welcome to connect with me. My doors are always open, like I say. So
Outstanding. Well, folks, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about suicide prevention. And Ray, you have a background in this. We shared briefly earlier that I also had a background in suicide prevention, but unfortunately also on the suicide response. And we'll talk about that piece as we go along on the show. But I wanted to ask you, Ray, with your background, how did you survive? Because it's not easy, right? To go through things in your life, but to become a survivor is something special. And so I just wanted to see how you did it.
yeah, so I mean, I can tell you first off that it is a true miracle of God. I've been very close to God ever since I exist in the world. And after my last suicide, I became closer to God more than ever. And He helps me with everything that I do, dealing with people and helping them. And, that's all I'm about in my life, is to help. But I mean, I had a lot of close calls. I had multiple attempts as a child. I had some as an adult. As an adult, I had some that I was totally gone. And, the last two were, you know, I really wasn't supposed to come back. And especially on the last one. And, because of the grace of God, like I literally came back, but I really wasn't supposed to. Um, and so, I talk about it. I talk about my death experience. I've had two, and then I've had many close ones growing up. I grew up in a violent family. My family was always trying to kill me as a kid, and I had a lot of car accidents and a lot of fights growing up. So I was always close call. But as an adult, it got worse. But a miracle of God, and luckily therapy saved me. I went into mandatory therapy in 2017. My last suicide was on Friday, October the 13th of 2017, and my anniversary is coming up actually, and it's my life has turned around completely between that experience, my connection with God, and really, really good therapy, and that I'm here today to be able to talk to you and everybody and give them information is a true blessing.
It's amazing. You mentioned the date, and I could vividly think of December 2017. I did not go through a, let's say, a death, like physical death experience,
Yeah.
but there was an emotional death experience that I had during that time frame, and you just never know what people are going through at whatever time it is. And you up in New York, I'm down here in Florida, simultaneously going through some life pivoting and altering moments, right? And so I am so glad that you are with us to be able to have this conversation and for me to witness the transformation of what therapy has done for you in your life and your will to fight and overcome and now be a facilitator, a person that brings others across that. So we thank you so much for going down that road because it's not easy. We're talking about leadership, we're talking about suicide. You would think that none of those two things combine at any junction in life, but as a leader, I have seen my role to be both an advocate of prevention and a person that talks and leads others to make sure that it's prevented. But in your words and in your thoughts, what is leadership's role in suicide prevention?
Yeah, well, leadership is very important. Our leaders have to have a solid connection with the public, with their connections. If we can say, their followers. I mean, I don't like to say that, but because we're all equal, but you need to have a solid connection with them. You have to be honest, you have to be trustworthy, you have to be loving, you have to be caring, you have to be informative, you have to be supportive, cooperative. I mean, there's many qualities that leaders have to have and have to be always positive, even when you're negative, which is me almost never. You have to be positive and give them positivity. You have to be able to radiate positivity. It's one of the things that I do as soon as I walk into a room. I radiate positivity and I charge people up regardless of how bad they feel or how good they feel. Once they interact with me, they're going to feel good. I guarantee you. So I think those are some of the things that you have to be. You have to be motherly and fatherly at the same time and combine them, and just treat everybody equally with respect. Like I say to everybody, I love everybody. That's my thing. I love everybody. I have nothing but love for everybody in the world, and that changed from my last suicide because previously, I wasn't like that. I was a very miserable person.
It's amazing to see the transformation from within. When you get into these moments in time where everything seems hopeless, right? Because you have to get to a point whether you don't see any way out. There is just no way, no clear designated way for you to chart a course and step forward and keep going, right? And that's usually how this whole thing plays out. You're either feeling alone, like no one cares, and you have no resource, or you're overwhelmed by whatever it may be, either guilt or remorse or fear, fear of what may come. I mentioned earlier that I was on both the um, prevention side, but unfortunately also part of the recovery side. On the prevention side, and you mentioned, hey, there's so many things that leaders need to be. Some leaders don't see this in their purview of responsibility,
Right.
right? They do not see them having to be some type of prevention coordinator in their position because it's not in there written up. But everybody that lives has a role in helping someone not see that as an option, right? We can't save everyone. I mentioned to you earlier, about 3 weeks ago, I lost a friend to suicide. Totally unexpected, as most are. Some you would say, okay, I see that, I saw that coming, but this, no one did. And you always come to think, what could have I done to help even more? And so, I wanted to ask you that, what do you think leaders need to know if they aim to help, other than just, don't.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I hate this to say this like this, but sometimes it just takes an extraordinary ability to feel and detect when somebody is on that verge, which is something that I have now that I got after my last suicide. Like I tell people all the time, I came back with some abilities after my last suicide. So you could say gifts from God. So I use them when I work with people. I'm meeting people all the time, whether it's in person or Zoom. And luckily, the majority of the people, they're mentally healthy. There are the select few that are not. But through my own experiences, I've been able to develop an extra ability to detect that. Now, that being said, I mean, I don't think everybody can do that, but they should look for places to get general information on tips, on strategies, on just general information of how to deal with somebody that's potentially suicidal, or look for warning signs. There's many different things. I mean, you can get information anywhere now. YouTube, I'm sure there's all over the web. You can give yourself a quick cram course and make it a daily habit or a weekly habit of reading up on tips from experts on how to just better yourself. you know I know that me, over the years as a leader, I was always reading things to just become better, to form better teams, to become I mean, I hate to say it, but become a better boss, to have better organization skills, better project management, people skills. Like, you can always get better at whatever you're good at. You can always be better, and if you're bad at something, you can improve. So you can always improve. It's a lifelong process. So that's what leaders have to do if they're a little uncertain on the suicide prevention area. Just brush up on some of the information, and it'll, little by little, you'll start absorbing it, and you'll become more of an expert, and it's going to help somebody you know
And you mentioned warning signs, and there's so many.
yeah,
You there are some that are often missed because we're not watching enough, but there's some that are missed because they're not apparent, right?
yeah.
And so, what are some signs that indicate, hey, my people may need some help?
Sure. I mean, there's so many. I mean, it could be somebody that's extremely depressed all the time. They're always in their room, or they're always to themselves. They don't want to talk to people. It could be somebody that overly indulges in alcohol, or does a lot of drugs, is consistently, passing out or close to overdosing. Maybe they talk about it, and like they don't care about life, or it could be somebody that's very violent. They're very angry at life. I've met both. I've met the people that are very depressed about life, and then the people that are very angry about life. And so, either one is looking for a way out. The violent ones could, kill themselves with a weapon, or some other way to harm themselves, or they could use, drugs to overdose. And depressed people can do that as well. um Sometimes the trickiest ones are the people that are like fine. They're regular executive, white collar, have a good family, good job, and they just keep it all inside, and then just from one day to another, they're gone. That is that does happen sometimes, and so, luckily, like me, because of my previous experiences, I can detect that. So if I can come across that person before that happens, I can help them. But not everybody can do that, because they put on this mask that, everything's perfect. They're a six-figure, seven-figure salary earner, professional, high degrees, prestigious job, beautiful home, beautiful car, and everything is fine. But one moment to another, they either overdose or they drive drunk and die, or they, commit suicide somehow, and people don't know where that comes from. So it takes an extra ability to identify those people. And those are, I mean, I don't know what the term for them is. It's probably, I hate to say this thing, but secret suicide, which is terrible, because at least with the other people that are in a depression, where they're constantly angry and addicted to things, there's hope. But the silent secret ones, those are the ones that, we have to develop better methods to detect that, you know.
And a lot of that comes by way of conversation, and there are leaders that won't converse with their people. They are just happy to give out some orders and let it ride, right? And if you take some time to talk to somebody, a person that needs help will normally say it. They may not say it verbally. They may say it, by body language. They may say it by something they expressed. And so it takes conversation. And you're right. Sometimes there are folks that are not vocal, are not expressive, and but you do see some things that kind of make your eyebrows go up. Like, okay, that doesn't seem right, or man, that doesn't sound normal. I wonder if I can just engage them in a conversation and just put them at ease. But you know you silence is usually one of the things that come with one of the surprises of, wow, I did not see that coming. And there are some people that go by it that way, but most people do cry out for help in one way or another. It's just how many folks are willing to listen, or how many people are listening but hearing at the same time, right? Or hearing and listening. Um, you know, uh, Everything that we do in the realm of suicide prevention is not always glamorous, but there is a love that is required to be able to, to fulfill this role of prevention and those that help. So, what do you love the most about what you do?
Well, I mean, like I've said before, and I've said it many times, I'm always going to say it is, I love people, period. Doesn't matter the background, the country, the color, ethnicity. It doesn't matter. I love people. I embrace all cultures. I mean, we live in America. I live in New York, is a very multicultural place, and I love it. I love that we have this type of food and this type of music and, this type of clothes, and I think it's great. You have to be able to love people. You have to be able to care. You have to be able to open up your heart, give them some of your heart, and then they'll give you some back too, and then they'll care too, and it's a mutual exchange. You have to establish that connection between others, and so I'm a very caring person, a very loving person, and I care about everybody. Like I talk about all the time on my LinkedIn network. It's a very large network, but I make it a point to meet everybody and learn about what they do and who they are. And I invite people all the time. Send me a message, set up a Zoom call, call me, whatever you want to do, anytime, as much as you want. I am openly a communicator. I enjoy the communication. Like previously, when I was a leader in corporate America, I enjoyed designing teams, expanding teams, enhancing teams, bringing out the best abilities of each team member. because I care about the team. I care about each person. I make it a habit to know, what's their favorite food, what's their favorite music, what do they like to do on the weekends, what do they do for fun? They're not just some robot there that's just doing the work all day. They're a person. They have feelings. They do things. So get to know people, get to know the public, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't know who I am. So I invite them anytime. Set up a meeting with me and we'll talk. It's all about communication. Communicate, care, love.
Yeah, you mentioned something that's so important. I also echo it when I speak to leaders. You have to know your people. You
Yeah,
have to.
yeah,
Now, leaders will take various roads when it comes to engaging their folks. There are some leaders that are just 9 to 5 or whatever the hour be for them, the working hours. There's some that keep work and home separate, right? So they don't. Once the clock goes off, they're like Fred Flintstone, right? They're out, and and you won't see them till the next morning. But there are other leaders that go a little beyond the work environment and provide for their folks an opportunity to engage and develop a relationship. Right, it doesn't have to be something that is inappropriate, but appropriate relationship where they feel comfortable in coming to their leader for guidance, and that leader is in a position to be able to help and become an advocate for some of these things that we are discussing today, right? Some mental health and preventions of suicide. So, what steps can a leader take outside of what you mentioned earlier? Get diving into the education and getting more savvy around things and communicating and loving and appreciating their people, that they can now become an advocate for a good mental health and the prevention of suicides.
sure. I mean, there's many things. I mean, if they want, they can take official courses. I know online they have official courses you could take and become certified in certain things. They could engage in conferences, seminars, become part of nonprofit organizations, you know, establish relation with mental health professionals that probably specialize in these things. It all depends how far they want to go, but they have to continuously educate themselves, get more information and more information, go to events, whether online or in person, and absorb, read books, whether it's a printed book or an ebook or an audio book, and get information. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly listening to certain people's podcasts, watching their videos, reading books. If I can't go to a conference, I'll watch the recorded version of it. Um, I'm continuously educating myself because I want to be better. I mean, I'm not, the most perfect person in the world on the subject. I come more from personal experience, you know, and so I can relate to it. A lot of times you'll go to a mental health professional and they have this fantastic education and internships and all that, but they grew up a great life and they didn't commit suicide. They weren't abused, so they don't know how it feels. So I come to you with that, the feeling of it. And because I've felt so many bad things in my life, I want to make sure that people that I deal with don't go through that. Don't go through that. Don't go through, like I tell people all the time, don't go through, you don't deal with abuse the way I dealt with it. I sucked pain for over 30 years and it's not worth it, and I tell people all the time, if you need help, get help, regardless of the threat. Get help. I never got help as a child because I was constantly threatened. So, regardless of the threat, get help, talk to somebody, talk to anybody. Now, these days, it's a lot easier. I grew up in the 80s and it was difficult back then. There was no internet and cell phones and all that. Now you could just text somebody or call somebody and, they'll save you. But, the way I grew up was terrible. But, going through the experiences of all these dark things, it helps me relate to people, whether they've been through them or not. And so it makes me care more, you know? I guess you could say for people, care more about yourself, care more about others. It'll take you very far.
Yeah, caring is one of the areas that you get most challenged with as a leader because there's the bottom line, there's the answering for the mission, there's the taking care of folks in terms of what they need at the work site, but nowhere in the scheme of the write up of your job does it say care for your people, right? It's something that you learn that as a leader, that's something that's integral and necessary for you to have a great relationship with those that work for you and you work with so that you can actually create an area of let's just say psychological safety. And I'll give you an example. I worked for a company, loved them to death, and they would every Monday morning before work ever started, we would get together and it was a how are you, how are you.
Yeah.
And I could tell you that I have never cried so much at my job outside of that at that time because and it wasn't tears of that they were bad. You started to feel, as people would share what they were going through that week or the weekend and into now they have to face. And it made you more sensitive to the issues that, affected the folks at your job. And you were more careful not to be so unforgiving and unrelentless in your pursuit of success that you rode over people. And it was one of the highlights of the week was that initial Monday morning meeting, and it was amazing. So if I was to add on to any of the stuff that you had just covered, I would say leaders start to create a psychologically safe place for your folks where they can actually express themselves when they need their help. Because if you always, as a leader, if you're always berating and beating down your people, they will not speak. They will not speak, and you will not be the person they speak to. Now, Ray, you mentioned the many times that you faced a suicide ideation or attempt, and even to the point where you had two, near death experiences. If there's someone out there right now listening and they're at that point where they are looking at, man, if nobody else says anything, I'm done. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that there's always somebody that cares and there's always somebody that can help them. And I will tell them that when I was a kid, I had nobody. I had no friends. I had no pets. I had no family member I could trust. I had no teacher, no doctor. I didn't have anything because I grew up in a violent home where my family threatened anybody, anybody that tried to get involved with anything. They were very violent people. But the one thing that I had, and I don't know where it came from, but ever since I was a baby, I had faith. I always had God there, always protecting me and watching over me and talking to me and going back and forth. And it helped me survive. It helped me survive a lot of the beatings and a lot of the violence. And I tell people, connect with God. I mean, I'm not trying to be some religious fanatic or anything. I mean, I don't go to church, but I do read the Bible. I've read it many times. There's a lot of inspiration in there. If you need to charge yourself up, pick up some passages. It can help you out when you're sad, when you're mad. It'll help you out. Have faith. Have faith. Talk to God. Ask him, what should I do? What can I do? Ask him I tell people all the time, ask him to touch your heart. He'll reach out and he'll just touch your heart. I talk about telling people, get touched by God or God's touch. That's what saved me on my last suicide, was actual God's touch, God's hand. And it does exist, but there's always somebody out there that cares and that will help, whether it's a stranger or somebody you don't know. It could be an aunt, could be a neighbor, could be a teacher, could be a doctor, could be anybody. Keep faith and talk to somebody. At first, talk to somebody and later on, find a good professional. A good mental health professional goes a long way. Talking helps a lot. I could tell you, I was in and out of therapy from 2006 to 2017. So I was, 10 years in and out. Couldn't find the right person. Some people didn't want to talk to me. My case was it was too much for them to handle. There was insurance issues. People didn't want to work with me. And I was in and out for 10 years. And then amazingly, around that time towards the end of it, I started committing suicide. And then luckily, when I came out of the last suicide, I found the perfect person that saved my life and turned my life around. And everybody can find that person. And I'm very thankful to that person, because if it wasn't for that person, we wouldn't be talking about this. A lot of the issues that I talk about is very serious stuff. And I don't hold back any of it. I don't water anything down. I keep it 100% real. And I'm very open about it. Most people don't do that. I'm one of the few that does it. I'm like I said, I'm not afraid or ashamed to do it. We need to shed some light on this. We need to put the spotlight on it because people need help, and that's why I'm here. I'm very happy. I do a lot of these interviews every week, and I welcome them all. If people want to interview me anytime, I'm completely transparent about all my experiences.
Well, folks, there's always somebody, and as a avid reader, I do echo that. Find and root yourself in faith. It does wonders. Ray just mentioned of how he was saved through it, and having that person there to help him, that one that he could connect with, and get past the hurt and pains and thoughts of trying to commit suicide, and you know the the act itself for a person is a terrible thing. I unfortunately had a lot of cases that I responded to that were suicide. Just witnessed the occurrence 3 weeks ago, and the pain left behind is often long lasting, right? So that person's pain may or may have not ended at that event, that act, but the people that love and cherish them will live throughout their lifetime with that, and so it's something that is not just impacting the person, but also impacts their circle. Uh, Ray, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, maybe hear your story, maybe interview you, maybe have you MC for their next event, how would they do that?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all over the place. You can check me out there as Ray Maestro, my name. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I also have my website, Let's Survive Together, which gives you a little bit of a background of how I grew up and, some of the things I went through and some of the things I stand for. And, little by little, I mean, I'm going to establish my YouTube channel. I just haven't had time to do that. And I did publish one book. I have another book that I wrote that I haven't published yet. It's actually a series which matches the name of the website. It's the Let's Survive Together series. My first book, Fighting Through the Darkness. The next book will be Oh My God, My Mother's a Witch. Um, and aside from that, I'm going to be in October, I'm going to start a documentary about abuse, and it will overlap some of other issues, mental health and suicide. But people can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm there. You can message me anytime. You want to set up a Zoom call? I do many of them all the time. I welcome everybody. My doors are always open. I have open door policy with everybody. and whoever wants to talk and communicate with me anytime.
All right, folks, and we'll have that as part of the video and show notes so you can get a hold of Ray. And you know, this topic can be somber at times, but it is necessary to discuss as we go down this month and this week and just highlight the awareness around it. Suicide continues to happen, unfortunately, more often than we want it to. In the military sector, we say it's between 22 and 25 suicides that happen every day. And that is just astonishing that that is a statistic. Imagine what it is in the general public, right? Those numbers are just too high to bear, but it is happening. If you are out there and you are contemplating or even thinking about anything like that, the nation has instituted a 988, like similar to 911, 988, and you can get to someone immediately. If you don't have a loved one that you can speak to or share, please, Ray, myself, folks that have experience with suicide attempts, ideations, and prevention, we are available as well. Just send us a message. On LinkedIn is immediate, right? If you're watching this on LinkedIn, if it's on YouTube, hey, send a message on YouTube or any of our social media where we can get you in the right direction to get help and recover from, these attacks. Ray, thank you so much for sharing with us today, not only your story and the things that you've gone through, but what you're doing in the community.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here. I appreciate it. Any place that I can openly communicate and express myself and try to help others is always welcome. So I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll be in touch anytime you need anything. Like I said, my doors are always open.
Outstanding. Well, folks, today's episode is sponsored by Triad Leadership Solutions. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're interested in sponsoring our podcast, we love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end this show, success to you.